We're going to talk about the 2012 Green Bay Packers incredibly prematurely. I have a little bit of a game or labeling that we can do here. Confident, comfortable, and concerned. What positions are you confident in that they're going to have big seasons? Which ones are you comfortable with? And which ones are you very concerned about? I'll kick it to you first, Matt.
Okay, you want me to just start out with some confident positions then?
Absolutely.
All right, well, without having to say it, obviously the quarterback position is something we don't have to worry about barring injury.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, though, considering we got rid of Matt Flynn, we might have to be a little worried if Rodgers gets banged up at all or, God forbid, has another concussion.
Yeah.
Obviously, in my mind, I know it's argued, but I say we have the best quarterback in the NFL. I don't think you can be much more comfortable with your starter than what we have right now. Other than that, I think probably only a couple other ones I'm super confident in, and that's obviously the receiving core is great. Hopefully bringing Driver back and go about 6 deep there. So that's probably our other greatest strength. And I would also say the tight end position with Finley. I know he's inconsistent, but the depth we have there too with some of the guys we drafted last year and with Crabtree and all these guys who could, have their own specialties and will be getting Corliss back. I think that's another real good position of ours.
Yeah, I would agree. It seems weird, a team 2 years removed from a Super Bowl where you kind of have so many question marks or at least unknowns. I would certainly agree with you. Aaron Rodgers, as much as I was very hard on him for anyone who watched that last playoff game with me, but I think without a doubt he's at least in the conversation for the best quarterback in the league, maybe the best quarterback of hopefully he'll become the best quarterback of this generation. I think with age and just with the level of play, 45 touchdowns and 6 interceptions last year is like Houston University numbers in the 80s. And I think I agree the receiver position is one of those that I feel very confident about simply because the strength in numbers. There's just so many guys that can take over if someone would get hurt, and there's even guys like Torrey Gurley who they're really strong on, Randall Cobb, who we hardly saw. I think Donald Driver has a lot more left than anybody gives him credit for, as I think the second half of the season, and especially that Giants game, was evidence of. I guess the other one that I would say is I'm very confident in the kicking specialists.
I forgot to include that one, but I definitely agree.
Yeah, right down to Brett Good, who I don't remember him ever having a bad snap in his tenure here. And we'll throw in Randall Cobb again as the kick returner. I think from the specialists among the special teams, I think they have a lot to work with there. So let's go with comfortable. What are some positions that you're at least comfortable with? You don't expect to be a problem spot, but certainly as things change, could become a problem spot.
Okay, I think the majority of the rest of the positions kind of fall into this category for me, considering we're such a good team, and you obviously aren't going to have too many really, really bad positions, but I'll throw the running backs in there. I think James Starks is serviceable enough with our passing attack and we're deep enough. We got a few guys. I'm sure Ryan Grant probably won't be back, but hopefully Alex Green is good enough to at least get a few carries now and then. I'll put the offensive line in there at this point. I know there's a lot of questions out there, but I'm at least comfortable enough with them. We'll see if Sherrod can get any better this year, and I don't know if Saturday's really going to be an upgrade over Wells at all, but it's at least a stopgap.
I think a stopgap's the perfect word. He'll at least maintain status quo for 1 year, buy you some time to find that guy who can take over like Scott Wells and be there for 5 or 6 years. And I'm not the one sitting there with the book like Ted Thompson is, but I still don't understand how you let Scott Wells get out of town.
Yeah, that was a rough release. I'm sure he was asking a little more than we wanted to handle, but to find somebody who's been so solid at that position,
yeah.
I think with the weakness at the position in the free agency, though, I think he definitely was a little overvalued.
Yeah.
I remember him even a few years ago getting benched sometimes, just, lack of good play and everything. So, I don't think he was elite by any means, but it's definitely a solid player there to keep in front of Aaron Rodgers.
That's a good point. I hadn't even thought of that. It wasn't at the beginning of the 2000, it was either 2009 or 2010 where they were trying to move Jason Spitz to be the starting center.
Yeah, I think it was 2009.
Okay. Do you have any other comfortable spots? Would you throw the whole defense in there, or are you not quite that comfortable with them?
No, I don't. I think I'll put the linebackers in there for now. Obviously, a huge hole on the other outside spot other than Clay. AJ, I was a big AJ hater for most of his career until 2 years ago when we won the Super Bowl, and he was outstanding throughout the whole season. And then last year kind of fell off again. And I kind of thought Desmond Bishop was pretty silent too. Really, Clay's the only playmaker out there on that line, but it's just these guys aren't even. You never hear their names be called really during the course of a game. Bishop and AJ just don't make plays.
Well, if anything, And I know it was a very small sample size, but DJ Smith and Rob Francois were making a ton of plays out there the couple weeks that Hawk and Bishop were out. I mean, remember that Giants game and that Raiders game? I think they each had an interception.
Yeah, and there seems to be a lot of depth there, just not really any real playmakers other than Clay, who's even kind of spotty sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess just the last position I would put there, and it's just the cornerbacks. I'm going to kind of separate the DBs on this one because I don't know how I feel about the safeties. But cornerback, Tremont and Chuck obviously have some great talent. Woodson looked pretty bad in the Giants game and wasn't quite the player he was in the past last year, but still one of the best in the league at the position. And I think Tremont has at least shown what he's done, that put some confidence in him there. And Sam Shields is a nickelback. He might be one of the best nickelbacks in the league as well.
Mm-hmm. I'm expecting Tremont to I think he'll recover pretty well this year. I know last year a lot of times it felt like he was on the other end of a long bomb or something, but there was nobody back there. I can't imagine, as long as Dom's been in the league, he designed a lot of defenses for Tremont Williams to be covering deep routes in a trail position. So I think I'll give him the benefit of the doubt on a lot of that, and I think he'll recover, because at times last year, I know in San Diego and some of those other games, he was as advertised.
Yeah, exactly. Do you have any other positions that you would maybe throw in the comfortable range that I wasn't willing to?
No, I think I would agree with the running backs. I think I'm comfortable there. I think they're going to be okay considering what the Packers like to do on offense. I would maybe throw the tight ends more in the comfortable than I would the confident. You threw them in confident, correct?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, I would say I'm more comfortable with that. I still think they're one Jermichael Finley away from being a complete non-factor in the offense. I think hopefully Ryan Taylor, I know they really liked. Somebody, I thought it was Rogers or somebody had mentioned that he reminds him of Rob Gronkowski, which I think is premature for a guy with like 4 career catches. But if Finley goes down, I really don't know what to expect from that position. Of course, the 1 year Finley does go down is the year they don't get any production out of there and they ride Donald Lee to a Super Bowl title. But I would say that's a confident one. But otherwise, I would agree with you on all those that you mentioned. So what about which ones are you concerned about? The ones that say if the Packers aren't able to get back to, God forbid, get back to the playoffs or contend for a Super Bowl, whose fault's it going to be?
I'm going to put number 1 on the defensive line, mostly because without Colin Jenkins there, they were just an absolute disaster last year. And Raji was nowhere near the player he was the year before, and just the other defensive ends on the opposite sides of him weren't really able to do anything throughout the course of the season. They couldn't pass rush. They weren't really run stoppers. I mean, you look at a team like the Giants, the reason they get there is because they pressure the quarterback. So for us to have such a weakness at that position across the board, really, I don't know if we don't draft somebody in the first round at the defensive end position or another defensive tackle, I think that's going to be more trouble for that. And I don't really see us going too far with the current defensive line that we have right now.
No, I would definitely agree. That's certainly number 1 on my list too. I could not believe that Colin Jenkins was that big of an impact. I know he's a good player and he did all right for himself last year in Philadelphia, but I mean, to have a whole unit just crumble because of one guy, and I mean, Mike Neal now is suspended for the first 4 games. I have no confidence, I guess, that this group is going to improve over last year very much, unless somehow somebody falls right into their lap that turns out to be, like Clay Matthews, right out the gate, right out the chute, be an impact player on the pass rush. But those don't happen very often. Those happen about as often as we've drafted them, where you get one Clay Matthews every 15, 20 years.
And then you get a Jamal Reynolds the other time.
Exactly. So hopefully they can do something. I mean, there's guys that can do it on certain days. I mean, you've seen Jarius Wynn, C.J. Wilson. On certain days, those guys can be a force, and then all of a sudden you go a month and you're like, oh, is C.J. Wilson hurt? No, he started 4 straight games. Oh, okay.
Yeah, and it's like you said, I knew Colin Jenkins was good, but I didn't know he was that good, and I guess I'm still kind of trying to figure out for myself what else it could have been that led him to be that much worse other than Colin. It's hard to believe that there was that much of a difference, because even the Super Bowl year, you'd see Howard Green in the Super Bowl making all these plays, and
yeah.
Like now I don't even know if he's on the roster anymore. I don't remember of him really playing at all last year, and some of these other guys, it's like there has to be something else contributing to this other than Colin Jenkins, but that just seems to be the only changing factor.
Yeah, you would think so. I guess I don't know either. It's definitely concerning. But is there anything else? I know we've covered most of the team. Is there anything else you want to throw in there?
Yeah, I think the only position we're missing here is the safeties, which I separated from the corners just for that reason, because I wanted to put them in this category. Without Nick Collins here, it's a disaster back there, and neither of those guys are very strong at coverage, and apparently Burnett's a good solid tackler, but I haven't seen enough from him yet to kind of prove to me that he's worth a starting position. And I think Charlie Pepper is just kind of a serviceable backup at best, and maybe like a spot starter, kind of like he was on the Super Bowl team with Nick Collins next to him, made him look a lot better. But I think if it's those two that are our starters, I think we're in big trouble right now.
I would completely agree with that, and hopefully I've heard some rumblings with Nick Collins. He's meeting with the team. I think this past week he met with the team, so hopefully this next coming weeks, and I apologize if there already has been an announcement, but I have not seen one. So hopefully we find out in the next couple of weeks before the draft what they have to do with Nick Collins. They were a joke without him. Pepper and Morgan Burnett, I don't know if maybe they just don't gel, or Morgan Burnett's not ready to play that kind of role, but there were games in 2010 with Nick Collins back there where, especially the Jets game, I'm thinking, where Charlie Pepper played like Ronnie Lott out there, and then all of a sudden he's next to he's next to Morgan Burnett, and he looks like he's a borderline pro.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully they can get some kind of chemistry in there, or maybe they need some new blood. But again, it's going to be a rookie. They're running out of free agents to go after. There's not a strong market in a lot of different areas this year, so it seems a lot of times, and you can't fault Ted. He's built a heck of a team, and he took an empty cupboard and he filled it pretty fast. But maybe that's the thing that would concern me is it just seems like a lot of these positions you're going to need to replace Charles Woodson pretty soon too, and you can't just expect every young guy to come in and be Clay Matthews or Greg Jennings.
Yeah, and we've definitely been spoiled with that with the Ted Thompson drafts instead of the Mike Sherman drafts, which would have been a lot more prosperous. It seems like everybody he's picking at the top of the draft, other than Justin Harrell, has been able to pretty much contribute right away. And it's kind of asking a lot, especially like Morgan Burnett, who was only a second-round pick, to come in and be lights out right away. But I guess we've been spoiled enough that we kind of expect that at this point.
Yeah, I completely agree. Let's go finally for the 2012 Packers. As far as contending for a Super Bowl, you don't have to pick them to win the Super Bowl. But as far as contending to win a Super Bowl, I'm saying, are they going to be in the NFC Championship game or deeper, confident, comfortable, or concerned?
I wish I could kind of go for a mix here, but I guess I'll go out on a limb and I'll say confident that they're at least going to contend. I don't see this team being much different than it was last year. And as we've seen, it's a matter of getting hot at the right time. I really didn't think the 2010 team was good enough to win the Super Bowl going in, but they got hot, ended up doing it. The Giants did it last year. This team's definitely good enough that if they're able to get on a kind of a roll going into the playoffs, I definitely have confidence that they can take it. But like I said, I think it's pretty much the same team as last year. I think just the way the season goes, if it goes a little different, I think there's definitely a good chance that we're going to end up in the Super Bowl next year.
I think I'll go more comfortable. There's no reason they shouldn't contend for the Super Bowl. Obviously, with the Saints kind of in shambles, you feel like it's a little less crowded up here in the top of the NFC as it was maybe even 4 months ago. I think, though, part of me just can't get over last year's playoff loss and the 2009 playoff loss. They're a Super Bowl champion. They have a lot of champions on that team. But part of me looks at the Super Bowl champions as a Super Bowl championship team inexplicably wedged in between two one-and-done teams. I guess I need one more year to decide which was the fluke, last year or 2010.
I think I just go confident here because when I think about all the teams in the NFL, I don't know if I can think of anybody who I think is better all around. So I guess if I'm going to say anybody, I'm confident in that's going to make it there. I guess they're one of the few teams that I have any confidence in, I guess, to be consistent. I just really don't think anybody else is quite as talented and deep as they are right now, I guess.
Yeah, it's hard to argue that, but it's also hard to argue saying that there was any team or maybe one or two other teams that were as good or better than them last year, and then a 9-7 team comes in and takes them to the woodshed. So
yeah,
it's a new day in the NFL where that kind of stuff happens more often, and so it's hard to really guess what's going to happen to these elite teams. All right, with that, we're going to take a break here, and then we'll be right back, and we'll give a brief talk about some of the around-the-league issues that have happened. We'll touch on the Saints' bounty, maybe Peyton Manning to Denver, and a premature league outlook, and then we'll do a very fun segment I think you'll enjoy called What If, where we take one event in Packers history, change it, and then talk about the ramifications. So we'll be back right after this.